Hey guys, Moo here. So, Marvel, under the leadership of Disney, has had its share of dog water flops in recent years. But not to be outdone, DC apparently felt like any of the Justice League movies, Aquaman, Wonder Woman 84, etc., it hadn't done enough damage. And with what can only be described as an empty cash grab floating in on the coattails of the Joker, we end up with Joker, Folie deux. Yeah. The movie starts off with a cartoon that basically sums up the majority of the story in the movie without using any words, and they could have left it there, but they decided to keep going and make a live action movie. So we find Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix. And I'm going to say Arthur Fleck or Fleck because I'll get to that. I'm not just going to say Joker. You'll understand why by the end of this. We see him played by Joaquin Phoenix. Again, an excellent guy playing that role as best as anyone can do it. He's in Arkham Asylum, and a guard played by Brendan Gleeson, who I love, leads him to his attorney and for a meeting with a psychologist. When passing through the minimum security wing of Arkham Asylum, they pass by what looks to be like a choir or a music class. And in that class, Arthur Fleck makes eye contact, with a gal in there. The gal is played by Lady Gaga. We'll get into that as well. Well, she comes into the hallway and she makes herself known. By that, I mean she makes finger guns at her own dome, and that's the beginning of one of the lamest excuses for a love story ever written, and I've seen most of The New Crow. That was bad. This is worse. Anyway, so Fleck meets with his attorney. That's played by the Gilf from 40-Year-Old Virgin, the grandma I'd like to... Anyway, and she explains to him that she's trying to get him sent to a regular mental hospital instead of this kind of mental institution. She says that after the events of the first movie, basically, the defense is going to be that he has split personality. She thinks he has split personality disorder, that the Joker is just another part of his psyche that he has no control over. That's the defense that she's going to use. Look, the Joker, Batman's biggest foe, the clown-faced mobster, he's the bad guy. He's just a bad guy. He doesn't have split personalities ever, that I recall. I know Harvey Dent does, as, Two-Face, because of whatever damage he took that made his face all screwed up. Psychologically, he went nuts after being a great, assistant district attorney. Regardless, Fleck's sanity is played with throughout this movie, and it comes off more like the writers are trying to make a statement about how we treat mentally ill criminals than what they actually do about caring for the story itself. They don't care about what they're writing as much as they care about getting some kind of point across. They want to get up on a freaking soapbox. This is a company that this is a problem that a lot of these companies are coming into. They're just getting up and spewing their vitriol and their beliefs and their politics all over everyone instead of focusing on making good content. They don't want to do that. They just want to force feed you whatever they believe and think is correct, regardless of how bad it damages what they're producing. This is proven, by the way, in an article titled this: Todd Phillips defends Joker, Folie deux, citing a political message to diminish problematic male influence. In the article, Phillips goes on to say that it compels society to confront complicity in male entitlement, which is a bold thing for a man to say when he has no testicles. These idiots are just like slapping their audience in the face. It's cowardice, it lacks masculinity, and that's what makes these morons feel like opposing views are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence, Todd. And I know that's where you're getting with it, and it's where the digress, a slippery slope that takes. But I digress faster than this film does. No way. So as Joker sits with the court psychologist, finally, we get his first line. Finally. I said Joker this time, fine. I wrote it before I finished the movie, that part. But the first line from Joaquin Phoenix is, "Can I have a cigarette?" Look, I'm in no way obviously bothered by smoking in movies, but it feels like Marlboro is a cast member in this film. The cigarettes have more passion than anybody involved in making this film, aside from maybe the actors, who are all great, by the way. The main gripe I do not have in this film is what the actors do. They do a great job. I will give credit where it's due. and the actors absolutely deserve whatever salaries they got because this movie probably didn't make shit. So anything they get, good on them. Now, Brendan Gleeson's character ends up, for whatever reason, getting Arthur into that music class that we see Lady Gaga's character in. Even though he's in maximum security, Gleeson pulls some strings, his character pulls some strings because of good behavior, tells him about this, and immediately Fleck becomes less morose, and the next day we see him joining the class that Lady Gaga's in. And then she introduces herself as, you guessed it, no, you didn't, she calls herself Lee. They have Harley Quinn calling herself Lee throughout this entire movie, I shit you not. Anyhow, Lee turns out to be a big fan of the Joker, Fleck's alter ego, or split personality if you don't give a damn about the source material. And then she claims to be in the asylum for trying to burn down her parents' apartment. Cool. Crazy people. Once again, spitting in the face of the original story. And frankly, removing part of what made the Joker so evil, which is pretty much the point of this movie, is to make him seem mistreated. They do the same thing with the Sith in freaking Acolyte. His mistreatment of Dr. Harleen Francis freaking Quinzel, the former psychologist, he basically twisted her so bad and mentally that she suffered from like Stockholm syndrome. That was their love story. Stockholm syndrome. A love story. I know that, look, to be fair, I know that she didn't start out that way as a character. She was meant to be kind of a slapstick sidekick for the Joker. But we all know it had to have started more toxic than my masculinity, Todd. Anyway, back in the high security wing, Harvey Dent is talking on the television about Fleck's case, and he says that at this point, in fact, he'd been found competent to stand trial. And from this moment on, it devolves into a freaking musical. With a few exceptions, big screen musicals are the lowest form of entertainment next to Jimmy Kimmel and snuff films, and it really doesn't work here. As much as they try to force it in, it doesn't. While watching a movie in the class, the singing class, next to Arthur Fleck, Lee gets up and starts a fire so that she and Fleck can have some time alone. She's an arson after all. Why not? She lights the piano on fire. She gets up, lights a cigarette, lights the rest of the matches, and throws them in the piano. And apparently the piano was made of tinder because it burst into flames. I'm not going to get into that. For multiple reasons that wouldn't work. I'm not going to get into that. One might think solitary confinement after this is a good thing. But basically, it's not enough. So what happens is the fire starts, they get into a singing fit. In the chaos, they're dancing around and singing another musical number, and then they get thrown in their respective cages. Cool, solitary confinement. 2 weeks, Fleck. That's what you're getting. But then we get subject to yet another arduous and out-of-place musical number. This is a Phillip zone. It's like the Twilight Zone, but it's where they just make whatever up for whatever reason and just cram it into a movie and hope for the best. Throw shit to the wall and see what sticks, I think is what they're doing with this. We're now somehow 40 minutes into this film, and it feels like we're just at the intro. We're just finishing the intro to it. It's that bad, guys. And this time does not go by quickly. It's not that you don't feel like it's been 40 minutes. It feels like it shouldn't have been 40 minutes already and it's not done with. Like the movie should have ended in 40 minutes. It's that bad. So after the hallucination that was that song, they usually use musical numbers to show hallucinations, which makes sense if you have to be crazy to think this idea would work. You would have to be nuts to be this writer. Lee wakes Fleck up in his cell and she insinuates she performs sexual favors for the guard to get her into his cell. I'm not kidding. Yeah, us normal guys are the problem, Todd. It's us. We're the problem, not you putting that shit in your movie. After that, we get one of the most awkward, totally uncalled for, but at least comically short sex scenes in a movie. And based on all evidence, this is 100% based on Todd Phillips' personal experiences with sex. 100%. This is something this man lived through. It's done way too realistic looking. And then way too much time is spent on this 2-minute sex scene. He had to have been there. That's just all there is to it, man. Anyhow, she went on She went in there to tell him that she's getting out of Arkham the next day, all of a sudden, after all of this fiasco, because apparently that's how bad writing works. Arthur ends up getting interviewed by a reporter. The goal from the defense attorney is to try to show the public that he isn't the same murderous clown guy because, lazy writing. And then we get another fucking song. The music in this movie isn't even composed for the film. Old Weenie Todd basically turned on adult contemporary station on his car satellite radio and just said, hey, we got half a movie, let's pad it with this crap. I swear this guy butt chugs Zimas. This is some laziness. Instead of making a movie be a movie, he adds the music that he did not have a hand in writing. The writers didn't write, and they shove it in there to pad time, and they pad it for too freaking long, because if you take out one of these musical numbers, somehow it misses the mark. Anyway, while after the interview's over, we see Lee outside. She's been released to the public. She's walking down the street, and she's watching this interview through a window, at which point she decides to smash the window out and steal the television because incompetence is running amok in Hollywood. Arthur now heads to trial, and as the transport van's pulling up to the courthouse, it's swarmed by fans of the Joker because what's a movie with a court case without the overplayed trope, right? I mean, you have to have that. If you have a courtroom drama going on, there has to be fans of the bad guy outside the courthouse, causing a ruckus or bringing attention to the situation. That's how they do these things in Hollywood. While Fleck's attorney's talking to the press after the first little bit we see in the trial, Lee confronts her during this press conference and calls her out for not just letting him be the Joker because that's who he is. Because she wants to obviously hurt this guy's case on television. When the attorney talks to Fleck about this, we get one of the dumbest plot twists since The Village. Harley Quinn's manipulating the Joker is the plot twist at this point. M. Night Shyamalan's convoluted ass would know better than to come up with something so asinine and absurd and stupid. I don't think Todd understands that fighting male entitlement requires you to make women look like conniving, lying psychos. But once again, I can only assume he's just going off of personal experience. Sorry if that happened to you, man. I feel your pain. We've all met a toxic girl before. Oh, by the way, now we're just about halfway through the movie. Harley visits Fleck in jail. She admits to lying about everything and then drops the biggest go-nowhere bombshell ever I've heard in a movie. She's pregnant. No, literally, I'll let you absorb that for a second. Literally, she says this to him. And this literally goes absolutely nowhere. Nowhere at all. This is never mentioned again. This is never brought up in a way that makes any sense. I think it's mentioned one more time and nowhere else through the movie. Doesn't matter. Maybe it's a cut scene somewhere on the floor. They could have cut out all the music and added that scene. It would have explained a lot more than this movie ends up at. Anyway, then, after that happens, after they talk in the jail, cue the Burt Bacharach song, because that's what they pull, is something he wrote, and the dance number. I know Burt wasn't the one doing it. I think he's passed away, but they play enough of his music in this movie to make him want to turn over in his grave. Look, Phoenix is a phenomenal actor, like I said. He plays this part incredibly well, as does the rest of the cast playing their parts. Lady Gaga is awesome. She's really proven herself as an actress, not just a great singer. I really like what she does when she gets behind the camera. Brendan Gleeson, of course, is awesome. Everybody involved in the movie does a great job acting. Again, I've said that, and I mean it. And, this movie does a really good job of starting to make you feel like you're on Arthur Fleck's side, like he's the victim. You start getting there, and just when you think you care, musical number. It's basically small writing followed by song and dance bukkake, and the viewers are on the receiving end. It's not well done. It's not well written. It's not great directed. Some of the scenes just they get nowhere fast. A lot of it actually does. There's a lot of loose ends that they tie up in really cheap ways. It's almost like they were trying to be more than what they are, and it's cheap. After this song and dance, we start seeing Fleck unravel a little bit. His crazy side starts coming out, his confidence is raised, and he fires his fucking attorney in the courtroom. Look, I know it's a movie, but guys, I don't care if you're crazy. Don't fire your attorney. They do no more than you do. There's an old saying that a fool represents himself or something like that. I can't remember how it goes. I'm not an attorney. Oh, yeah, as a fool for a client. Anyone that represents himself as a fool for a client. And this is the case. So now that he's representing himself in court, you see Fleck in his freaking clown makeup. A technicality allows it, the judge explained, because, yeah, you fucking plot device. Because you have to have the Joker somewhere in the movie, because this is not a Joker movie. Spoilers, this is an Arthur Fleck movie. I'm not kidding. This is not a Joker movie. It's called Joker Folie, deux, not a Joker movie. Now we cut to another musical number and we find Fleck and Lee hanging out at a jazz bar. The jazz bar, just, I saw this and I cracked up. And I wonder how many people caught the name of the jazz bar. It's Pogo's. This might not seem prescient to some of you who are younger, but for those who don't know, Pogo was the alter ego of John Wayne Gacy, the man who molested and murdered at least 33 boys in Chicago before burying them under his house. I guess Hollywood just has to shout out their heroes, right? I mean, that's the direction things are going with Hollywood. Look, I find it funny because the Joker's evil and Pogo's obviously very evil. It just seemed weird, and it made suggestions about the Joker that didn't need to be made, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what they were going for with that. Maybe they just thought it was funny. I almost see the humor in it. Almost. And I was trying. Anyway, in the courtroom, Fleck gives a pithy speech about how bad everyone has abused him, including the guards at the asylum. Now, Brendan Gleeson, who's been pretty cool with him thus far, though it doesn't make it clear in this movie if he hated him before, or if he was toying with him, or if he was being just genuinely nice and liked him. But he sure as hell made up his mind at this point. Because him and two other guards, they beat the hell out of him. And then it's implied they do butt stuff to him too, I guess in honor of Gacy. And then they throw him back in his cell. You know, for a guy trying to make a statement, Todd Phillips seems to be stating that he's sick, weak-minded, and angry guy with a violent streak, and he's way too weak to ever act out on it for real. That's what this comes across as. It's like when Quentin Tarantino downplays guns, get rid of guns, and the guy's made all his money off gun movies, and then says, oh, I'm not going to have that conversation about it. No, you're a pussy and you're a hypocrite, Tarantino. Phillips, same thing here. If you think I'm being hard on Phillips, just remember this is the same asshat. He stopped making comedies because of, quote, wokeness. His words, not mine. He went on a tirade about how there aren't any funny people anymore because they quit comedy because you can't make funny movies because of wokeness. That Todd Phillips is this Todd Phillips. He made some funny, hilarious, great movies that I loved. And then he made this. This is what happens when you get too woke for your own good, Todd. So he's either being hypocritical or he's just a spineless dweeb that wants to keep his job in Hollywood. And frankly, I understand if the last movie you made was $1 billion movie and you got rich. I would guess that's why you'd want to stick around. To me, I like to keep my company like my soul, slightly clean, just tinged enough where if I wash it off, I feel like I don't have to use lime. Anyway, we finally get a verdict at about the 1 hour and 55 minutes into the movie mark. It's the least courtroom drama to courtroom drama ever. Look, Flex says there is no Joker now. He goes from I'm the Joker to I'm not the Joker, there's no Joker. Now he's crying and apologizing and is found guilty, of course, on all charges, and he's sentenced to die. He gets up and does something, and suddenly there's a friggin' explosion, and a guy dressed like the Joker drags Fleck into a car where they attempt to get away. Fleck runs away from the car at some point when the cops are blockading traffic with the guy behind him trying to get his attention, and he outruns the guy somehow because the guy is not in great shape. I don't know how bad Joaquin Phoenix had to starve and dehydrate himself to get down for this role, but bro, you got to take care of that back. Dude, he slouches this entire movie in a way that makes me hurt. Anyway, he gets to the staircase from the first movie, the famous staircase he dances up and down on. And what does he see up the staircase? Lee, standing at the top, smoking a cigarette. Now, look, Harley does the obvious thing here, right? She ditches his ass. I was being sarcastic, but I mean, if you look at that's really the only sensible part of this hodgepodge of crap compiled into a film. They built their relationship on fantasy and psychosis. She's basically a damned groupie. What was supposed to ever happen when you don't actually build the relationship up? You know, that's the lesson we did learn from The Crow, the new one. And I mean, it could have used that. I mean, but at least they were on drugs the whole time they were smashing each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least they had drugs in common. Here, Harley Quinn even says, well, this is nothing. This was a fantasy and you gave up on it, so I'm out. Anyway, right after she walks away, Fleck's arrested again. Back at Arkham, Fleck is told that he has a visitor. In transit to go to the visiting area, another inmate comes jogging up behind him because he wants to tell Fleck a joke. Tells the joke and then proceeds to stab the living shit out of him. I'm not kidding. We then watch the attacker give himself a Glasgow smile in the background as we watch Fleck lay there and die. And what the hell is wrong with writers in Hollywood? This movie does it all. Courtroom drama, comic book movie, love story, musical, but it does all of it incredibly poorly. It's bad, not good. There are a couple things, though, about the movie I did like. Like I said, the acting was on point. The way it was shot looked decent, aside from the way they cut it. Sadly, none of that does well enough to make up for the crap they subject us to in this film. Like, it's frustrating that I sat through this movie, not once, but twice, and it's a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. The ending makes it pretty clear that even Todd Phillips wanted it to be over. He didn't want to have to do this again, so at least maybe there's some humanity left in him. Just don't let him posture otherwise, because he had to end this movie. There's no way they could possibly make a third one, even if they didn't kill the guy off in the end. This bombed. He knew it was going to bomb. They all had to know it was going to bomb. This is like Captain Marvel bad. It's like Acolyte bad. Okay, maybe not that bad. It was pretty freaking close. Normally I'd say don't take my word for it and think for yourself, but dude, it's not this time. Okay, just take my word for it. I never do that. I always say do your own research, check things out, but I want to save you the burden here. Now look, if you somehow liked this movie and you watched it, you know, you liked it, enjoyed it, let me know in the comments what you did like about it, why you disagree with me. If you watched it and didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like about it in the comments. And if you didn't see it and you're not going to see it because of watching this video, you're welcome. I expect a like, a subscription, subscribe. But seriously, like, either way, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to. It doesn't matter. I have fun doing these, but I didn't have fun doing this one. So if I get a couple follows out of it, I'm thrilled. Anyway, thoughts and prayers for the next movie I'm going to do. I haven't figured out what it is yet. I had to watch this one. I had to. I had to sit through the Acolyte. I didn't even bother making a video about the Acolyte. I shouldn't have bothered doing one about this, maybe, because my psychology behind my brain now hurts. I feel like I should be at Arkham Asylum. Anyway, fucking yeah. That's the Joker. Fully a douche. Boo out.